Welcome back to the First Team. I'm Joe DeLeone. With me is my co-host, Ryan Roberts, NFL draft analyst for A to Z Sports. We already did quarterbacks. We did a midseason check-in on quarterbacks. We're going to do a couple more of these position groups. We're talking running backs today. We're talking about the guys that are building some momentum. Ryan, you texted me the other day your thoughts overall on the class and how it's shaping up. The running back class isn't as exciting as I think we originally thought, but it still is very, very gifted and quite possibly some guys that are emerging and rising that we weren't expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of phrased it exactly, paraphrasing slightly, Joe, but like it is arguably the best class in the 2025 NFL draft class. But I thought it was going to be even a bigger separator between them and like corner or safety or even defensive line. Like I really in the preseason, I think we were talking about it as in like, is this as good a class as like the Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette draft, right? Like, is it as good as that
there.
one? It's not there. There's been one guy that separated himself, obviously, at the top, and there's been a bunch of good players that are rising up the boards. But like we also have seen like Ollie Gordon, Jay Nott just kind of get off to really slow starts this year because I don't think their team is great around them. So it's still a really good class, but I don't think it's quite the historic class that we thought maybe it could be in the preseason.
Two big what ifs, or more so, let's wait and sees with Ollie Gordon and Jay Nott, especially because Ollie Gordon got banged up in the BYU game despite playing out of his mind and being the reason why Oklahoma State was in that game. But there's a grouping of guys that we certainly want to get to today. The most obvious one to start us off, Ryan, Ashton Jeanty has been so freaking fun to watch. I don't think anyone is expecting us to have some hot take that nobody has put out there already. He has played himself into legitimate first-round conversations to the point where he could even go in the top 20 picks. It all depends on positional value. But if a guy like Bijan Robinson could go as early as he did, Ashton Jeanty certainly can as well. My biggest thing for me that is, and we already knew who he was as a player, but now he's just getting more of an opportunity and he's really excelling with all those traits that work so well, which was making guys miss, having great contact balance, great burst. But dude, I love watching him play just because he's so casual about it. You know, he has got the best
stance. Yeah.
Well, the stance and then the way that he's running. I scheduled a clip to post later in the day of one of his runs against Hawaii where it doesn't even look like he's going full speed. And he's just kind of pushing dudes' heads away and he's just bouncing off of tacklers and he's strolling away. Jeanty has lived up to every expectation that we have. I'm hoping that he gets through the year unscathed and everything's fine. Don't know if he wins the Heisman because it might end up going to a quarterback at the end of the day, but Jeanty has played himself into that top 20 conversation.
It reminds me of, I don't know if I ever told you this story, Joe, but Jonathan Taylor played obviously here in South Jersey, and he played in a low classification of football here in Jersey. So like him versus everybody else was just hilarious.
I'm sure.
It was just like that guy is a man amongst boys. And that's what Ashton Jeanty looks like this year. I mean, like he is playing at a different speed than everyone he's playing. And at first, though, you're like, okay, is that just him playing against, you know, the West Coast schools, the Missouri, the Mountain West, I'm gonna say Missouri Valley, the Mountain West schools, the schools that he is clearly just more talented than, the Hawaiis of the world. But then he did what he did against Oregon too, right? Where he almost ran for 200 yards and was dominant in that fashion. I mean, he is having just an incredible year. I still don't think the long speed is like amazing, but he gets up to his top gear in such a quick dude. His contact balance is outrageous, and Boise State hasn't even utilized him in the passing game this year as much because they don't need to, but we know he brings that to the table as well, and he's blocking his butt off. Like this kid is RB1, and it's not even close. Like RB2 in this class, it's not even close to a conversation.
Right. This is one of those situations, Ryan, where there should be a consensus, and I would argue if anybody tries to put anyone else in that number one spot after everything we've seen this year, especially with the separation between him and Ollie Gordon, you're trying to do too much.
It's clickbait.
Anyone who's not, I'm not going to classify it as clickbait.
No,
I would classify. Well, I think that psychologically, I don't know if it's necessarily like I need to put this guy here in order to get more clicks. I think that there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, well, I don't know if he does this, this, and this. Actually, I think that so-and-so, like people hyping up Omarion Hampton as well as possibly being better than him. I don't even
Hampton's playing well. He's playing well.
He's fine. I don't think he's in the same conversation as some of these other guys that we're going to bring up, but it should be an obvious de facto. Genty's number one. He's the only guy that's worthy of going in the first round.
I agree. I think that there were maybe a player or two that maybe in the right situation, if you're in the back end of the first round, maybe there's a team that takes a plunge, but there's obviously a lot of second round options at running back. But like overall, Joe, if Ashton Jeanty went top 10 in this class, I would be fine with it. I would. I'm not even the huge, take a running back in the first round guy. I'm really not. I'm okay with it in the right situation. But for him, he's a top 10 player in this class. I would argue he's a top 5 player in this class. He is that good. So he deserves to be picked very high. And there is obviously that clear separation between him and hit number 1 and number 2 in this year's class.
We already dove really deep on DJ Giddens, who's the Kansas State running back. If you want to go check that out, go hop on the audio feed and you can catch our Kansas State breakdown, which was very recently. Really good conversation there. But to just reiterate and sum up our thoughts on Giddens, this is a dump truck guy who's a big frame, who shows some pretty good acceleration, some pretty good feet, able to win in short areas. You're a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of his. I haven't placed grades on these guys yet because it's just a little too soon, specifically for the running back position in these big school, big time programs like this that are playing big competition. I want to see how they finish down the stretch. But why did you like Giddens so much, and why were we both so high on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's 6 foot and an eighth. He's 216 pounds. He's got kind of that high-leggedness to how he runs the football, but he is the best in this class, in my opinion. That includes Ashton Jeanty, of setting up and making players on the second and third level miss. Ashton Jeanty's more of the run through you, break tackles, great contact balance guy. This is more of the smooth glider with really nice short area change of direction and understands how to set moves up ultimately on the second and third levels. I really like the pace that he runs with. I really like just kind of the nuance of understanding space. He can tell he sees daylight, Joe, but he's thinking a couple steps ahead. I mean, it's like he's playing chess. He has kind of that thought process to him of how to run the football overall. And we have seen, although he had one drop in the game that I watched, I think it was against Colorado, he has been a really productive pass receiver the last couple years as well. Not a great pass blocker, but he can catch the football. Really good second to third levels. Not great long speed, kind of similar to Jeanty, but I think that he gets up to it in a really crazy amount of time. And overall, man, he just understands how to make defenders miss in very tight windows, and that is always going to play on the next level, in my opinion.
Nick Singleton's another player who we haven't spoken much about. I think that his production is a little overshadowed because he's splitting carries with Katron Allen. He was somebody we talked about in the preseason as a guy who needed to take a step forward, especially with his vision, his awareness, his instincts. I think the offense that he's now playing in with Kotelnicki has really helped him take that step forward. I don't know for certain if he's in this 2025 class or not because he's a true junior. Right. There's a lot more incentive for some of these guys to come back for an extra year, especially running backs, to collect as much money as he can. But I caught on film, we knew athletically this is a powerful guy with really strong lower half that has good long speed, but he just was missing that little ability to really read and find those holes. I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see what he could be at the next level. I think he has every tool to be a lead back for a team. The game that I watched against Illinois of him, I thought was pretty impressive. He's not put himself in that upper bucket just yet, but we're starting to see some steps forward for him.
Well, I think he has as much God-given ability as anybody in this class, though. I mean, when you're talking about a physically dense kid with explosiveness and long speed, he has all the tools. I agree with you. I think that he is really developed, and I know that he was one guy that I wanted to talk about because I think he's developed a little bit more general understanding of patience, where things are going to break open, when to cut back, when to be patient front side, and when to explode and hit a home run. He has kind of just that nuance has taken a step forward. I would still like him to finish runs more. I think that there's more in the tank from a power perspective, and his long speed is tremendous. For me, here's a comp that worries me a little bit and also excites me in another, because I think that this player has been good at times, but he's been held back in others. He gives me a lot of Cam Akers vibes when he was coming out of Florida State. A lot of Cam Akers. Cam Akers, super athlete, had to figure out how to play the running back position. And at times in the NFL, Cam Akers has been very good. At other times he's been poor because he's been banged up. So it's a little bit of a different conversation. But I think he is the boomer bust player potentially if he enters the 2025 NFL draft class. Because I could see Singleton becoming a plus starter in the NFL, or I could see him becoming a Cam Akers-esque player where like he's just kind of bouncing around a little bit because he doesn't have generally just a feel for the position as good as some other players. So I think he's a little bit of a boomer bust player, but he is a tremendous athlete who seems like it's starting to slow down for him this year.
Well, I'd argue that Akers' issues kind of were injury influenced. So like we can't completely hold that against Akers in that situation. And doesn't like totally correlate with, I understand what you're saying.
He also wasn't a natural runner though, Akers coming up.
Yeah.
He was a great athlete who was still figuring out the running back position. So I think the general lack of feel for the position at times, I think is where I kind of draw the parallels to Singleton.
Kaleb Johnson, who you had mentioned when we were discussing ahead of time on who we wanted to get to, the Iowa running back, 6 foot, 225. He's a big dude. I mean, he looks 2 heads bigger than Cade McNamara, who's standing next to him behind center. I really was impressed by him, and I think that he is going to be a name, if he does declare in this draft, that will be amongst my top 10. I think he could be a day 2 back just because he's got the build.
Yeah.
He has very deceptive. You see how big he is. You think that he's not going to be a really great long speed athlete and that he's going to have good bursts in short areas, but he does. And the thing for me, I caught a clip of him where he just kind of rides out an outside zone play and he's patient. And then he sees the gap and he just hits it and he goes and he bursts away and nobody's able to keep up with him. He is somebody who the production is now starting to show up, but I would I would argue that I feel like not enough people are talking about him in the scope of this class.
I think he could easily be a top 5 running back in this class, if not a little bit higher up the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like he has that upside to him because, like you said, Joe, he has the typical profile of an NFL running back, 6 foot, 220 plus pounds. But the thing that I really like about him is he's pretty creative, dude. Like you would think that he's just kind of this downhill plugger, but like when you really watch him play, you're like, he's stringing multiple moves together. He has these subtle just movement skills laterally that make guys miss. So he's not the DJ Giddens make you miss in a phone booth guy, but he understands how to string runs together overall, right? And I think that he gets to his top speed pretty well. I would guess he's probably around a 4.5 flat to 4.52 type of athlete. Like, I mean, he can run in a straight line just fine. I think it's plus for running back standards on the NFL level. So for runaway freight train at times that I think has a little bit more of a hit fluidity than you would anticipate. I think Kaleb Johnson has been tremendous. I'm kicking myself in the butt though, Joe. I saw him the first game of the year and he ran for like $170. I'm like, dude, that looks nice. That looks nice. But at the time I wasn't ready because it wasn't against the greatest level of competition, but I should have been like, dude, I know I feel like a coward. I honestly do. I should have been like, nope, that's a guy. Stick to your guns. That translates. And obviously we have seen it translate every game so far outside of the Ohio State game.
Let's rip off a couple of guys that we each individually caught eyes on. Sounds like we're going to be able to get to a lot of players, which is, I'm glad the way that we prepared for this show. I've got one, I texted you about him. RJ Harvey from UCF. He's been super productive this year for UCF. He was super productive last year. Yeah. I don't think he has the top gear that you're looking for in a premier go-to back. I think that that's like one of his biggest knocks.
Yeah.
But one, he's built like a bowling ball. I love the frame. Like he is super compact. He's super thick. He's got some
very Kyle Monungai-ish, wouldn't you say? Like there's a parallel there. Yeah.
I was trying to think of like a good comp for him and I couldn't. He's thicker than Monungai. Like he feels like he's bigger than Monungai. He's kind of built like Jonathan Stewart a little bit, the way that he is. What a
pull, Jonathan Stewart.
Well, but he's 5'9". He's over. I want to say he was in that 210 range or something like that. Kind of made me think.
I'm gonna find. I think I have a verified measurable on him while you're talking. I'm gonna try and find it real quick. Go ahead.
What I was mentioning with him, outside of not having that top gear, there are times where he got caught on film. I really loved the way he was able to create for himself in short areas, like in these tight windows where UCF's offensive line, it's not very good. It's not. There are a lot of times where he's running into his linemen that aren't getting any push off the ball, but he's got some pretty good feet. He's able to make some pretty quick cuts and shifts to find and create space for himself. But I like when these smaller guys that aren't over 5'10", that are low to the ground, that know I need to play low and I can almost sneak my way through these rushing lanes. I think that there's something there with him. Not saying he's a premier back, but I can see total production as a secondary player if he's taken early day 3 because of the feet, because of the vision, and as an impact that could also eventually translate to him being a good receiver as well.
He kind of hides behind blockers a little bit. You know who he reminds me of?
Yeah.
He's not as short. I have the verified measure, by the way, and he is, how tall do you think he is? Give me a guess.
Who Harvey is?
Harvey, yeah.
He was listed at 5'8".
5'8" and a quarter is what he is verified. Okay. 201 pounds. So he's a little bit of a bowling ball, to your point. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit stylistically to Devin Singletary, who obviously has been a good productive back in the NFL and RB1 at times in his NFL career, obviously. So I agree with you, though. He plays very low to the ground, plays with good contact balance. He is
Jonathan Stewart's a terrible comp by me,
I'm about
by
to
the
say,
way.
dude, Jonathan Stewart was like 230 pounds, bro. Like, he's huge.
I'm an idiot. Jeez, I'm bad at comps. Go ahead, continue.
Devin Singletary. We're going to go with Motor Singletary. That is the comp, I think. I don't know. R.I.P. to Joe's comp.
I should be shot.
Nah, don't shoot yourself. 201 pounds, though. Plays very low to the ground. Not a great straight line athlete, but a good lateral athlete, sort of like the Devin Singletary is. That's who I would comp him to overall. He's probably faster than Singletary, though, because Singletary is like a 4'6" something athlete. Like, he was not fast at all. Like, no speed. But play style, I think, is very similar. I think he is I don't want to call him dollar store version because that's very disrespectful, but he is the mid-day 3 version of what Kyle Monangai is to me. Like, Kyle Monangai, I think, can probably maybe go third to 4th round, somewhere in that ballpark. I think if you miss out on Kyle Monangai in 3rd to 4th round, you could maybe get an RJ Harvey in like the 5th or 6th round, and that would be where you kind of find that fit.
Who's one guy that you want to bring up here in our discussion?
Finally, we had a breakout performance from Damien Martinez, Joe. Finally, dude. I've been waiting for it because I was super high.
They're barely using him. If anything, that's a good thing that they're splitting time with him and, oh my God, what's the name of the other kid that you and I were texting about?
Mark Fletcher.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be a guy to talk about.
He's big, dude. 6'2", 220. It's crazy. Crazy. Well,
he's massive.
I was nervous in that Louisville game too because I'm watching early and I'm like, where's Martinez? Like, they're not even giving him the rock. I'm like, what the heck? And then in like the late first, second quarter, you started seeing it, right? And then there was his touchdown run, dude, was just like, all right, guys. All right. That's not fair. He basically broke like 4 or 5 tackles and then trucked a dude on his way to the end zone in that one. And Louisville coming into the game had a pretty good rush defense. Like, they were not a bad rush defense at all. They were a bad pass defense, but like stopping the run. They have a lot of NFL caliber defensive linemen. They are a decent rush defense. They were. And finally, Damien Martinez started getting going. And I know Miami's offensive line had been banged up. Like, Rivers, the left tackle, had been missed a couple of games early in the season. I think that the offensive line wasn't doing him any favors, but I saw creativity more in this game. I saw that battering ram, and I saw getting downhill in a hurry. So I'm hoping that this is the start of ascending Damien Martinez back to hopefully near the top of this running back class, because he's been kind of incognito for last few weeks. First few weeks, I should say.
I had one more guy I wanted to bring up who, again, this is not going to be a premier, probably not even going to be a top 10 back, but I think a good day 3 option. Somebody who I put on our radar before he ended up at Arizona State, when he was at Sac State. Talking about Cam Scadaboo, who's playing for the Sun Devils right now. He is another guy who is compact, low to the ground, super jacked up and is a bit round and has got that bowling ball build. And he plays like it. There are times on film, and when I was impressed by him, similar to Harvey, does not have that extra gear to like really separate. He can get after it and he can pick up speed. But what I loved about him, the body control. He's not a crazy quick cutter that's going to really juke anyone out of their shorts, but he does change direction well. He's got good feet. The balance shows up often where he's off platform and he's got a very narrow base in his cuts. And then he creates space for himself because he has just such natural body control. And then there's the one play that was shared plenty when he played against Utah, where he meets a guy in the hole, he hits him, he almost trucks him basically. And it looks like he's done. It's like a 5-yard gain. It looks like he's fallen over. He stumbles, picks up his body, puts his hand on the ground, stands straight up, runs for a touchdown. So the body control for me with him, and also knowing they're not using him as much at Arizona State, but at Sac State, he used to be a really productive receiver.
Yeah.
I really think that Scadaboo, who has just had this emergence and this growth over the past couple of years, is going to be a quality day 3 option.
Can I raise you another bowling ball here? Ready? So we got
a lot of bowling balls.
I'm gonna rattle two guys off real quick, but I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth on this one, maybe like a minute. For the Washington Huskies, the leading rusher, Jonah Coleman, man, who I really like.
Is he eligible?
He is. He's a true junior, so he can come if he wants.
Okay.
He has rushed in 7 games for 681 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaging 6.9 yards per carry. He's been incredibly productive, 16 receptions. Joe, he's listed at 5'9", 229 pounds. In reality,
that's a haul.
In reality, though, he's probably 5'7" and some change, dude. He is short. He is very, very short. So he is.
I didn't know what diet he's on that he's 230 and he's rocked up the way that he is.
And his lateral mobility is pretty good, dude. Like, it's not bad. It's not like debilitating at all. Yes, he's a short, compact runner who's going to play close to the ground. He's that guy that is going to have to turn out a second effort yardage, but a couple of reps this year where I'm like, that's underrated lateral mobility. So that kid is short yardage, secondary option in a running back room that brings a lot of power and contact balance to the table. I like him a lot. And then here's the deep pool. Ready? Deep pool to end my list here. There's a running back at Rice named Dean Connors, who is
Why are you watching Rice film?
Don't ask questions.
We're in the middle of the season, brother. Why are you watching Rice film?
Because they have a young man named
outside.
They have a young man named Dean Connors, who so far this year has run for 472 yards and 6 touchdowns, only 74 carries, and has caught the ball, Joe. Leads the FBS in running back receptions. He has 41 catches already this year. And Joe, he's a white running back, which is great. It's fantastic. But no, he's actually
that has nothing to do with it.
6 foot, 205 pounds, 206 pounds. This kid runs with great pace and acceleration, gets up to top speed in a hurry. He's got really good hands. I am betting on Dean Connors to be a late round draft pick this year and be a third down back on the next level, if nothing else. I like Dean Connors a lot, obviously joking about the white running back thing, but also he's a tremendous football player that not a lot of people are going to talk about because he plays at Rice. So he's probably what do they do at Rice? They're big, they're engineers, right? Isn't that like a big engineering school or whatever? So like the big nerd,
I think so.
Something like that. I don't know. Either way, Rice is for nerds, right? But this kid is an NFL running back, Dean Connors for Rice.
Oh, we love it. We love to hear the deep pulls for some random schools.
Good player, man. Good player.
You don't have anyone else you want to bring up before we wrap up here?
Not for now. Not for now. I think he's been tremendous, man. Great running back class. Great running back class.
I don't think we're going to go through every single position group, but folks, we'll be back next week. I think we'll try to do receivers, or maybe we'll just do like a general O-line, something along those lines, one or the other. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you folks later. Enjoy the rest of your week.